Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos who love film that's a lot of H's mixed with a W and an F, whatever. We are very excited to be back with you this week. Unfortunately, some technical difficulties left us unable to record last week. However, there's some really good news. We'll get to that in just a second. Before we do, though, we're going to be talking about the new Star Wars trailer, as well as Weiss and Benioff's departure from future Star Wars movies. We'll also be reviewing The Lighthouse, the new film from director Robert Eggers, who brought us The Witch a couple years ago. But before we even get to all of that, let me introduce my fantastic co-host. Jim Pugliafico is here with us in the studio. Jim, how you doing?
I am here. It's like a technological marvel that we're all here together again. We can see each other. Hopefully things will
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
I'm excited. We're gonna talk about a very interesting movie and some interesting movie news. I can't wait.
Good. Glad to hear that. And Will Lindis is here with us as well. Welcome, Will.
Yar, me mateys. I've been looking forward to this one. I'm not going to do that the whole episode because that is vocal death, but God, I've been wanting to talk like a salty pirate, like just for this episode for so many reasons.
Will, you can use that voice all episode. If Jim and I can do our impressions of Salty from Battlestar Galactica all episode, we just finished this series.
Absolutely. It's been allowed. It is... Do.
God damn it, Bill! There you go. I think you'd fit right in.
Where do you keep the fracking booze around here?
It sounds like my salty voice and your salty voice are kind of similar, right?
Wait. Oh my God.
This
Salty and Salty? That's amazing.
Yes.
Oh my God. I wonder if Ron Moore actually named him. Well, no, because he was named in the original series. Never mind, but I wonder if that's why. Anyway, we alluded earlier that the reason we didn't record last week and everything that happened was for a good reason, and Jim kind of commented on this here a second ago. We are very pleased to announce the return of live video to the Movie Bears podcast. We've put in a lot of research. We've put in a lot of work. We've had to spend hundreds of dollars on programs to make all this magic happen. For what used to be something free on YouTube, we could click one button and there it was. But those of you in the live chat, if you could do us a favor, just let us know if you can see and hear us okay. I popped in on the live feed. It looks like everything's okay, but I noticed Hamstracked and a few other people are with us. Hey guys, welcome. Glad to have you. Let us know if you can see and hear us. That would be fantastic. We've really not been missing the video personally because we could still see each other while we were talking, but I know a lot of you folks who like to tune in live every week, that's something you've been like, when is it coming back? Please tell us. And guys, Hamstracked says yes, and yes, we can be heard and seen. Dun 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 dun.
I mean, this is so exciting. We've been a video first, audio on delay podcast for several years now. We would do our things on YouTube and we would push that episode out to iTunes and Spotify and everything. And so it's been a little bit heartbreaking for us to not be able to share that aspect of this experience with everyone. And so we're really excited to be back online. This is pretty cool. And if there's any technical bugs that anyone who's streaming in live happens to notice through the course of this, we think we got it down, but just flag it and let us know.
Yeah. Please do flag it because I think it's going to be a work in progress. This is kind of our debut with the new setup after a couple of false starts. So there may be still some tweaks that we can make to make the experience better. And if there is, please do let us know.
And We'd planned to go on last week with probably everyone's most anticipated film of the year, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and we've had to unfortunately bump the review of that one back. But I guess just for anyone who is super interested, maybe we could give without doing a full review of it, just a thumbs up, thumbs down, and that's it on it.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
All right, Jim, you go first.
Wait. We got to do our
Our gladiator style.
Yeah. Ready?
Mhm.
Ready? Go.
Oh my God! 3 thumbs up.
No shit. Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
We haven't all
let's-
talked
guess-
about the movie since we saw it, so this is a little bit of a surprise.
The bar was low, but yeah.
It's my favorite live action Disney movie of the year, but the bar was low.
Oh boy.
Cool, fun.
Oh, boy.
Thank you for indulging me.
No problem. All right, well, we've got a big show coming at you for this week. We're going to be talking about The Lighthouse. We'll give you our spoiler-free thoughts, of course, before we go into spoilers. We'll give you a fair warning. But before we even do that, we were itching to talk about the new Star Wars trailer last week. We're going to do that here in just a second. But then this whole thing with Weiss and Benioff from Game of Thrones happened, too, with the new Star Wars trilogy. They were helming, so we got a lot of Star Wars to talk about. So we're just going to call it an official movie news segment. Will, Jim, are you ready for some movie news?
Sure, let's launch.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, then here we go. Some movie news. All right, so this newest Star Wars movie, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, comes out here in just a couple months, right? A little less than
Episode 9.
a couple months. Yeah, and I know we all got
December 19th or something like that.
The 20th or so? I don't even know, but it's like 5 days before Christmas. I think it's the 20th, but we all got our tickets. Awesome? Question mark? I don't know. I don't know that I'm still feeling it, but we'll talk about it after we talk about the trailer. Where do you want to start with this trailer? Keeping in mind, we only have about 10 minutes.
So, the thing about these trailers is I think that by and large, these 3 movies that have come out, episode 7, episodes 8, episode 9, I think by and large they've been pretty good, effective trailers for the most part. And I think that's because they lean very heavy into the nostalgia, this is the end of a saga. It's the reintroduction of these new characters as part of the saga, whichever episode it happens to be. And so I think that just if you have any affinity for these characters and for this world, you're gonna have some of those connections. I will say that of the 3, this is the one I've been the least excited for. Mm-hmm. And that's been a little bit of a bummer. I mean, and that's despite the fact there's some cool things in this trailer. We get to see Lando Calrissian there for a moment. We get to see a shot of Carrie Fisher as Leia. We get that beautiful score, some great group shots. We get that wonderful little, like, what are you doing there, C-3PO? Taking a look at my friends. And we get some fucking space horses. We get all of these things in this trailer. And each of those things individually is exciting. But as a whole, I don't know. Like, my excitement level is, like, here. And I kind of wish it was, like, way up here in the stratosphere.
Yeah, Will, I'm with you. And I don't know whether your excitement is a little bit relatively lower because of the trailer itself, or because of just kind of where we are and what we've been through with the series. Maybe a mixture of both.
A mixture, for sure, yeah.
A mixture of both. For me, like, this trailer didn't have the impact on me like the trailer for the Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. Those trailers I thought were very, very effective in getting me excited. I mean, the movies being a separate thing altogether, how we reacted to the movies, and that could be all over the place. I generally liked both of those movies to a degree. And I thought I'd be more excited for this, but I just find myself not being excited. The trailer before this one for The Rise of Skywalker, oh my God, was that the one where all they did was show clips of previous movies?
Well, but
do you remember
that?
That
wasn't a trailer, though. That was like That was like a
Is that a fan-made thing?
No, it was. They called it a
That was a
preview.
teaser.
They called it a preview. Yeah.
Preview, but it
I don't think it was an
it's
official
preview of
trailer.
Stuff we've
But there
already
was
seen.
one more trailer in between because
Right.
I know there was the one where it shows her doing like the flip
Right.
with the sword over the TIE
Yeah.
fighter. I remember that was pretty prominent in the last trailer.
Yeah. No, I meant the I thought there was a trailer for this movie where they just showed clips like going back all the way.
It was a preview. It wasn't an official trailer, I believe. They released some footage. Was it in conjunction with Comic-Con or something? I forget, but
Feels like it probably was like a
Yeah.
Comic-Con or something.
they were just
that,
like,
yeah.
"Hey guys, here's this like sizzle reel showing some stuff from the old movies and a little bit from the new one. Enjoy."
Yeah. But anyway, in this one, I mean, we got a bunch of fucking inane, voiceover about, fulfilling your destiny and blah, 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 bullshit. You don't know who I am. I'm fulfilling my destiny. Just a lot of stuff. And then the clips that they showed from the movie, nothing too much to grab me. I don't know. I don't know what to expect for this movie. I do know that the movie experience, if we go opening night, is going to be fun because that's always fun, regardless of how we feel about the movie coming out. And we know this is probably it, right? This is the last. This is going to be the last of this line of movies.
It is.
I mean,
Yep.
it's going to put a capstone on this whole Skywalker, all these characters that we've kind of fallen in love with over the last like 9 movies mostly. So it's going to be interesting to see how they wrap it all up.
Yeah. Steve Sosa in the live chat says, "Hey everyone, good to see you guys again." Hey Steve, glad you're enjoying the video. Good to see you too in the live chat. And yeah, Jim, definitely a good point here. I mean, this is ostensibly the last, of the 9 films about the Skywalker family. The movie is titled The Rise of Skywalker. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what that means. There's many theories out there. A lot of people are thinking this movie is going to undo Rian Johnson's "everybody is special and gets a trophy" message. I don't know. We'll see. But I gotta tell you, from a visual standpoint, there's some things I really liked with this trailer. We got to see more of Rey and Kylo fighting on what looks to be maybe a piece of a Star Destroyer or a piece of the destroyed Death Star on Endor, maybe? I don't know, in the ocean. That was kind of cool to see. People riding horses on the hull of a Star Destroyer.
Horses in space.
I know. I'm like, what?
Those are space.
What
horses.
is this
Space horses.
about? Okay. Obviously, we're going to get some Luke, right? We hear Luke in a voiceover. 1,000 generations live in you now. So I suspect he'll be all Force ghosty. And I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. I want to see some more Luke. But I got to tell you, this... I don't know. I got more excitement from the score behind the trailer than I did like the video of the trailer itself. And then Will, you mentioned the whole thing.
Is the score not all the same?
Well, I mean, it's like variations on a theme. Oh, God, Will.
Yeah.
Like the back part of the trailer is actually really masterful in terms of the music because it takes the kind of the traditional Star Wars John Williams score, but it slows it down just a little bit, not to the point of being tedious and obnoxious, but enough so that like, I don't know, there's like some breath and some weight in between each of the kind of the major rises and falls. So I think the score itself was probably the strongest suit.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So I don't know. Otherwise, though, I got to tell you, it's not doing too much to get me excited about this movie. I know you guys were much more favorable on The Last Jedi than I was. I'm trying to like go into this movie taking all like 8 of the previous films in with me rather than just The Last Jedi, because this is like the capstone. And Will, you mentioned there's that scene with 3PO and the Falcon, and Finn's like, "What are you doing, 3PO?" And he's like, "Taking one last look at my friends, Harry Potter. Finn." Totally reminded me of Dobby from the Harry Potter movies, the way Anthony Daniels said that for some reason. But it kind of touches me a little bit too. I'm like, Are they plugging 3PO into the computer and he has to do something to save everybody that's going to kill him? I don't know. Do you think we're going to see some other prequel trilogy deaths in the movie is my question for you guys.
So I think that if there's any time where you get to see a death count in any series, any franchise, it's in the finale, it's in the capstone, right? Like it's the moment where you can ramp up the stakes and say, look at all that we've lost to get what we needed to get. And so yeah, I of like the major characters, more than likely someone's not making it through, especially since you've got Kylo Ren and Ray, sort of like set opposed to each other, or maybe in line with one another, or whatever it happens to be. They have this like really confusing relationship, and then you've got all of these other support characters from the past and the support characters from this trilogy alone. When all of those things collide, we're not going to have all of these characters coming out of here. And I hope that if it's done when end of a franchise like Murder Sprees can be fulfilling and tragic, or they can feel gratuitous and false. And I certainly hope it's the former, not the latter, that they're not killing off characters just because.
Hamstracked in the live chat says Palpatine is going to die, ... again. I don't know. What do you think?
Dun, dun, dun!
Yeah, because he was killed, right? Spoilers for
Return of the Jedi. Vader threw him over, the wall into the reactor core.
Wait a minute. Wait. Back up to the Last Jedi. Who was killed in that one?
Oh, that's Snoke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Snoke.
Different. Yeah. No, Palpatine's the one whose voice we've heard in these trailers, and so it's going to be playing some sort of role in some sort of way, probably, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
But Brad, I'm right there with you, but for different reasons. For me, The Last Jedi is just one of those special movies that I don't think it's possible to recreate its magic for me. Like, it was one of those like rare, like perfect 5 out of 5 movies that just, if I go into this next one wanting that same thing, I'm going to be left wanting. So I've been really trying to temper myself to think of this as movie 9 of a 9-part series, as opposed to the sequel to this thing that I enjoyed so much. And I think that's going to help me with the experience. So similar thought process as you, from just a different angle.
I think what draws me to the last few movies and this one are kind of the newer characters. I hope we get to see more Poe, more Finn. I definitely like the Rey and Kylo Ren dynamic. I think they're the most interesting characters in the whole thing, even against any of the other old characters like Leia or Luke or Han. So yeah, I want to see them do something with these characters. My theory is that they actually kind of get together, they reconcile, and they have a baby, and that baby is Luke. It's a big time loop. It's just a big time loop. Is that what it is? They're Luke's parent.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
We see this scene in the trailer that looks like a jungle moon, like it could be Endor, but maybe they're actually on the island from Lost. And that's what sets up this whole timey-wimey shenanigan bullshit.
Maybe. That's just my theory. They always anyway. No, I'm really joking. It seems to me like they have this, like we talked about, they have this relationship where they're kind of together, but they're still adversarial. Are they working together? Are they going to end up working together or working at odds and destroying one or the other or both? I don't know. But we're going to be there opening night. We say that how much the trailer didn't do much for us, but we're going to be there opening night and excited, I'm sure.
And I think that's important. I am excited. I wish I was more excited, but I'm still excited. Like, I look at the slate of movies that's coming up over the next couple of months, and there's a few that I'm more excited about than this. But this one's still like way above most of the other offerings on the upcoming slate. So yeah. It's gonna be
So
fun.
Steve in the live chat had a theory about Palpatine. Maybe he comes back as a Force ghost, a Sith evil Force ghost. And Hamstract says, well, that would be cool, but how do you defeat a Force ghost? Maybe the rise of Skywalker refers to Luke's Force ghost rising up to battle Palpatine's Force ghost. And that's the climactic battle, taking away all of Rey and Kylo's agency.
So you
Oh,
got this
God.
like ghost on ghost battle. Oh no! So what then happens is, check this. So Rey and Kylo are just kind of like, I don't know if we should fight or not. Maybe we should. Maybe we shouldn't. And then Palpatine possesses Kylo Ren, and then Luke possesses Rey. And so you got these ghost people inside of these regular Jedi's just fighting, and I don't want to see that at all. But I do think there might be something to the idea of the Force ghost thing, because the Force ghosts have a really weird legacy within Star Wars, right? We all know what a Force ghost is. At the end of the movies, we get to see the characters that have died just kind of like standing and smiling in the background, going like, oh, that's cool. But they don't have a huge impact on the story aside from a couple of like use the Force, Luke, reminders to trust your instinct type things. So this might be a good way for them to make this thread that's gone all through these, all of the 8 movies up until now, to pull it together with a little bit more like narrative cohesion, so to speak.
Well,
so I think there's something to it that maybe has ghost legs.
And that would make sense because in the new trailer we see this shot of, what looks like Rey and Kylo in the old throne room from the Death Star. So maybe when the Death Star like blew up, it came crashing down to Endor, because Palpatine like blew up in the reactor. Maybe his spirit like infused the derelict hulk of the Death Star and lives there. Whatever. We'll see what happens in a couple months. But speaking of Star Wars and crazy outlandish theories that never really come to fruition, let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about Weiss and Benioff real quick. I know we have a movie to talk about, but this is also very much in the news right now. So Weiss and Benioff, the showrunners for HBO's, of course, smashingly popular Game of Thrones, very hurriedly rushed through the final season of Game of Thrones, ostensibly to get to work on their new Star Wars trilogy. And it was announced yesterday, relative to when we're recording, that they are leaving Star Wars. They are no longer doing a prequel trilogy, or not a prequel. They're no longer doing a new trilogy, which was supposed to be the next trilogy after this one wrapped up. I don't know any details. Obviously, I don't think anything was released about what it was going to be about or what it would entail, but they're now apparently no longer involved. Kathleen Kennedy over at Disney, Star Wars, whatever, is like, we're leaving the door open if they ever want to come back. But do you guys think they really decided to leave? Or do you think this huge entire shit show that's been happening with them over the last couple weeks, over them basically saying, we didn't care about the Game of Thrones fans at all, we just rushed through it to get it done so we could do other projects, maybe put a stink in Disney's mouth?
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that last 2 weeks thing that you just mentioned. And I'd be surprised if they actually said something like that, but maybe they did.
I think they did actually in some of their Q&As here in Austin, actually, like just down the road.
Yep.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll have to go read some of that stuff. But I guess I don't. It's all a big deal about nothing. I guess Star Wars is gonna find talented people to Disney and Star Wars or whoever. Fucking Disney now, right? They own everything. So I mean, they're gonna find talented people to put their next series and movies together if they think it's gonna make them money. And I know that sounds cynical, but I'm sure Weiss and Benioff could have created a good Star Wars set of movies or sequel or whatever. But I think there's tons of other creative writers and directors out there. And as far as like what happened with Game of Thrones, I'm not as negative on the ending of Game of Thrones as some other people are, and I know some other people are very livid about it. They don't like the way it ended. It did feel a little rushed, but I felt still satisfied by a series that kind of captivated me for probably 3 or 4 years there. Once we caught up with it, you know what I mean, and started watching it, probably one of the best, if not the best, one of the best series on TV, I think. It's hard for me to say, oh well, that was shit. I didn't like the way it ended. That's just not the way I feel about it. But as far as their thing in Star Wars, good. If they go off and they do something totally like more unique, something new that hasn't been done already to death, to me that's better. For them to spend their talents on that.
And I'm kind of similarly minded, Jim, in that I liked the way Game of Thrones ended. I think that they fixed some things along the way that worked for me quite well. But I'm also really good with them not being on the next Star Wars because there's a couple of things that feel a little pulled thin at this point. First of all, we've got, in addition to this Star Wars trilogy, there's one that Rian Johnson's supposed to be working on, and Kevin Feige with the MCU stuff is supposed to be looking at some stuff too. So there's a lot of Star Wars happening, and then we've also got The Mandalorian coming out on Disney Plus. So there's so much happening that taking one of those things out of the mix, I feel like gives the others room to breathe and to maybe exist a little bit more. Plus, on the other side of this, Weiss and Benioff also have this sort of big deal with Netflix right now where they're going to be developing some content for them as well. And so at the same time as I felt that Star Wars was spread thin, I was also worried that D&D were going to be spread thin going across like both Star Wars and Netflix. So now this lets them focus, this lets Star Wars focus, and I think it just lets all of the properties have a better shot at higher quality. Nothing against them specifically. I would probably say the same thing about pretty much anyone else in exactly that same set of scenarios that I just described.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Brad, tell us what you think.
I'm over the moon that they are no longer attached to Star Wars. I mean, I liked the final season of Game of Thrones as well, but reading some of the comments from those Q&As and how they basically admitted they didn't care at all the last season and just rushed through it as quickly as possible and really didn't even try. I don't know. I don't want that in Star Wars. Like, how do you put people who don't care about fans in command of the biggest fandom ever? You know what I mean? For a 3-movie deal. So whether it was Disney deciding to say see you later and let them save face by saying they stepped away, or maybe it really was this Netflix thing. I don't know. I don't care. I'm just happy that they are not doing a new trilogy. And I'll be really honest too. I hope, since they had the next slot in the billet, right, for trilogies, I hope this means we go maybe 3 to 5 years without any new movies while this other stuff is in development. Because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I need a Star Wars break. And I know Mandalorian is coming, and that could be interesting. But like from a movie perspective, I'm ready for 9 to kind of be it for a while.
Yeah, I want whatever the next thing that comes out, movie-wise, I want it to be good. And if that means that it's not just like, oh, we got to shit one of these out once a year, yeah, make me wait. Make me wait for something better than force feed me some quick shit. 5 years, I'm good with that if we get something super solid.
Yeah, we could have a whole. We're not going to do it right now, but we're going to have a whole discussion about whether these creators should be creating shit for fans or creating shit for the product and art's sake. And if a creator came out and said, "Hey, I didn't care about the fans when I was making that. I wanted to make the best product I could and get it made, and make it in the way that I wanted to make it," I'm fine with that. Fuck the fans. Like this, it isn't all the time for the fans. I mean, it is for the sake of art. I want to see the artists. I want to see the creator's vision. I don't want to see the creator's vision of what he thinks the fans will like.
But here's the thing.
That's different.
I think you can do both. I think about the most recent season of Discovery, and I won't spoil anybody, but they go so far on the fan service route after the first season was so far on the like, let's make our own thing and do what we want.
Right.
And I think you can have something that lets you do your vision, lets you do your own thing, but you can put in some of that fan stuff to kind of please people. It's a delicate balance. Just like there's a light side and a dark side of the Force, maybe the best place, is in the gray area. I don't think it has to be all or nothing. But I think publicly, I think publicly shitting on fans is the wrong way to go, though.
It's why I'm a little bit worried about Quentin Tarantino and Star Trek. There's been some talks about that. And it's because I think Quentin Tarantino is a solid filmmaker. I know, hot take, right? But Quentin Tarantino makes good movies. But I don't know that his vision, if he just did a completely Quentin Tarantino vision that didn't keep the minds of those fans and their expectations and their love of the lore and the history in mind, if he just went completely left and made his own thing, I don't know if that's the type of Star Trek movie that I want to see, or that maybe a Star Trek like Die Hard would want to see. So I think there is, when you're dealing with properties and franchises, I think there's a line. You get these movies that are mass produced for the sake of just kind of putting something out or maintaining the license, and that's awful. I think we saw that with the like the Sony Spider-Man movies, the second batch of them with Andrew Garfield. Like, those were fairly directionless, but they were trying to figure out a way of like keeping the character viable so that Marvel couldn't do what Marvel ended up doing. But then you have a lot of these things where you get some creators on board who can figure out what makes the character tick while also doing something creative and interesting. James Gunn in Guardians of the Galaxy is a fantastic example of that. That wasn't just James Gunn doing James Gunn. That was James Gunn working within the studio system. Same with Taika Waititi on Thor Ragnarok. We got to see a very different Thor there that was very a Taika one, but that was also a very Marvel DC
great
property.
example.
Or Marvel Disney property. So yeah, I think that where I want to see Star Wars go is, I would love to see creators on board, but I think more than anything, you have to have a strong person at the helm. I think that's why I've mostly been a fan of like what the Marvel movies have done, is not because of the individual filmmakers. I think they have a strong, cohesive vision that sort of pulls everything along. I think that that's some of the things that some of these other big franchises have lacked, and so that's what we need. That's what we need, and I think you can probably slot a few people in there as long as they're willing to take some chances, but keep the fans in mind.
And yeah, I mean, I think I just fall in on the side of, I want kind of the artist vision to lead the fans, not the other way around. And you're right, Will and Brad, there is a balance, and you can do both. But for me, I prefer to see, I get more wowed when an artist can show the fans something new and bring them, because fans will follow good art. You don't want good art to follow the fans.
I agree with you. Yeah. And I think even if you look at something like Logan from a few years ago, right? That was like an indie X-Men movie. Like, it's kind of that, like, did their own thing, like went their own direction, but like there was enough fan stuff to keep people in the seats and bring them with them and give them room to run and take some risks and do something different. And that ended up being one of people's like most favorite like X-Men related movies ever. So I guess there's a reason that we have to bring balance to the Force, guys, and we could probably talk about this for another half an hour or more, but this
is a whole episode.
I know, but we do have a movie to discuss. So how do we feel about maybe following the light that's shining from across the distant sea and heading for the lighthouse?
Through the fog.
Yar.
All right.
Yeah, don't be swabbing that floor.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and switch gears and talk about The Lighthouse, the new film from Robert Eggers, who brought us The Witch a couple years ago. If you haven't seen The Lighthouse yet, and maybe you're kind of on the fence about it, maybe you saw the trailer and you're like, oh my God, it's black and white, it's in a square ratio, I don't even know if I want to see this. We're going to talk about the film, probably spoiler-free, 10 or 15 minutes. We'll give you a fair warning before we open that can of spoilers so that you can step away, whether you're listening live or on digital tape delays. So, all that said, if you're at all interested in hearing a little bit about The Lighthouse, here we go. Get ready. Our discussion of The Lighthouse starts now.
That was my foghorn impression.
That was your foghorn impression?
I'm glad there were a few different sound effects that you could have used to segue into this one, and I'm very glad you chose that one.
Or this one.
Oh, God.
Oh, that.
Okay.
I'm also glad you chose that one.
Well, now, I see here, boy. That's my best foghorn impression.
Good. I like it. No, I
Foghorn,
like
Leghorn, a little bit different, but, hey.
No. Yeah, it works. It works.
All right, so...
Nah, I'm just simple.
Chicken hawk. Anyway, so Will, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of a setup for this film. Some folks who may be listening may not be familiar with The Lighthouse. They may not have even heard of it, seen a trailer, whatever. Give us that sweet, sweet spoiler-free setup and let us know your initial thoughts. Was this worth seeing in theaters, waiting for rental, or skipping entirely?
Yeah, so you hit the most probably important fact about this one up front. This is The Lighthouse. This is the new film by director Robert Eggers, who gave us The Witch. Very anticipated follow-up film to what made a lot of people's lists in terms of like their favorite horror movie of that year or even favorite horror movie of the last several years. So a lot of people's eyes are on The Lighthouse. Is this one going to be any good or not? This movie is set like in the late 1890s and it's in New England, and there's this little island off in the middle of the water. And the whole movie more or less takes place on this island. And it follows these two lighthouse keepers who are on a rotated shift there. You know, they rotate lighthouse keepers, wickies, as they call them, in and out to kind of keep everything going there. The more seasoned of the two is Thomas, played by Willem Dafoe, who plays this old salty dog of a sailor, so to speak, who definitely takes rule of the roost and farts just all the time. That was the sound effect I was glad that you did not use for the
spoilers. Spoilers.
There's some spoiled air in this one. Anyways, his apprentice is a new wickie who has just come to the island and is trying to figure things out. A guy named Ephraim, played by Robert Pattinson. And what follows is this really hallucinogenic, warped tale of isolation, of loneliness, of madness, of the bonds between people when they're forced into this like weird, oppressive situation. You know, it's just you and the water and the fog and this one other person. And I absolutely adored this movie, but I need to say that fans of The Witch, just because you like The Witch, I don't think you're necessarily going to like this one. I think that this is a much less accessible film than The Witch. Its story is much more esoteric in a lot of places. It's much more about the mood and kind of what the characters are feeling than it is necessarily about the narrative plot beats. So, and I know that The Witch was already a challenging movie for some people. So I want to say that this is not going to be a movie for everyone, and that is okay. But going back to your point, Jim, I love that this is a film where Robert Eggers sort of has this vision of exactly the type of movie that he wants to make, and he crafts it so carefully and lovingly. It's done with this beautiful... Everything's done in black and white, but because it's on this misty island with the waters, like, even though the blacks are super black, the whites are never super white. You just have this like oppressive gray that sort of like permeates the screen and feels like it gets underneath your skin. Beautiful sound design, water crashing on waves, the gulls doing the things that seagulls do. The farts, yeah, very well foleyed. Even the framing of it is set up in a, it's not in the traditional widescreen format. The edges are clipped. It's a very specific look. The lighthouse itself, I got to see this one at Fantastic Fest and got to see a Q&A with Robert Eggers, and he said he looked everywhere to find this lighthouse, and he couldn't because he had such a specific vision of it in mind. So they made it. They made this lighthouse so that he could get exactly what he wanted. So this is definitely a movie that's all about craft, from the performances, which are all top notch, from the framing, from the way it looks on screen. I love this movie. I don't know how many times I'm going to go back and rewatch it because it's sort of an exhausting watch, but it's definitely an engaging one, and I highly recommend it.
I see.
Right. Big recommend from Will. Jim, how about for you?
Yeah, boy, this movie is wow. It's just so interesting, so different than almost anything we've seen, certainly this year. You're right, Will. This movie is about tone, and it's not really much. It's about tone. It's about characters. It's about getting into the heads of these two characters. I mean, there's only two people. Well, there's actually three. There's only two people listed on the IMDb cast page that are prominent, and there's one kind of minor one. We'll talk about that a little bit later because it's kind of a spoiler, I think. But yeah, I love The Witch. I think it might have been my number one movie of that year, 2015, I think, or 2016. I can't remember, but and that was a horror movie. This movie doesn't really try to be a horror movie. It's got maybe some things you might consider horrific in it, but it's not a horror movie. It's not trying to be that. It's definitely a psychological examination, I guess, of kind of again, another slow descent into madness. Without and there's some themes. There's other themes mixed in. I ended up really liking this movie. I don't know if I could say I loved it. I'm still kind of thinking about it in my head, like what the things I really liked about it. The two performances here are crazy good. Willem Dafoe is like, when that camera like zooms in on his face or gets in on tight on his face, and he's yelling at the other guy, or he's giving some kind of monologue, like, you are glued to his face. Just the way he delivers that line, and it's speaking in another kind of form of old style language, English language, that's different from the old English we got in The Witch. But apparently Robert Eggers loves this language thing, and he'll probably keep exploring it. Pattinson's very good too, and I keep going back to which one's the best performance, and they're both really good. It's hard to recommend this movie to most people. I think most people are going to be really maybe a lot of people are maybe going to be put off by this movie. The things we mentioned, it's in black and white. Some of the dialogue is kind of hard to understand if you don't like get in the right kind of settle into the groove of the dialect and the pacing of the dialogue. The aspect ratio and the lack of kind of a plot, if you will. And we could talk about that a little more. So it's hard for me to recommend. I really liked it. It's if you really want something different and kind of be wowed by a director who's really on top of his game, and some actors who are really tripping it out right now, or if you just want to see the new Batman do something interesting, check it out. I would say it's a cautionary recommend for me. How's that?
All right. So a super strong recommend from Will, a cautionary recommend from Jim. I guess it's up to me to weigh in now. I liked this movie. I didn't even come close to loving this movie, but I liked it. Jim, you mentioned one of my biggest complaints about this film, and that is the dialogue and how hard it is to understand. At least with The Witch, which also had this problem, it was because, it was set hundreds and hundreds of years ago. They were speaking Ye Olden tongue, and, obviously he loves his actors to mumble as much as possible in these films. Probably the first 35 minutes of this movie, I couldn't fucking understand what they were talking about. And they use a lot of, sailor slang and stuff that, like, if I were watching this movie at home, A, I would have put the subtitles on, and B, I probably would have been like looking things up because I didn't know what they meant. So what I kind of had to do was just stop listening to dialogue and just start watching their faces and their movements. And I think once I started doing that, I had a better time understanding like what was going on, what they were feeling, what they were going through. And the movie itself makes a shift away at one point from like heavy dialogue, and it's more like, show don't tell, which I think we all kind of appreciate. And we can talk more about that in spoilers, but when it kind of hit that point, I was on board with it then. I was like, okay, I understand what's going on. I don't have to listen to them yap at each other and not being able to tell what the fuck they're talking about. And so that made it better for me to some degree. I do like the creepy atmospheric things that they do with the lighthouse itself, and just the grounds, and this, even something as innocuous as like a seagull, right? Like, how many times have people been to the beach? Oh, seagulls are cool, or oh, seagulls are annoying, but like, you don't really like fear seagulls. Like this movie, the seagulls were like a character onto themselves. Like they were this like omnipresent force in this film, and I'm really interested to talk more about that. I mean, the seagulls are in the trailer, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything that there's seagulls in this film, but I don't know. I think this movie also like is very self-masturbatory in a lot of ways, with some of the things that
Go on.
with some of the things that it tries to do. It is artsy as it tries to be, and like, I really think it's great that a lot of people appreciate those things, but for me, I'm just kind of like, I just want to know what's going on, and like, I want to know what the plot is. Is there a fucking coherent plot? Maybe not. Maybe that's the price of admission for this movie. I don't know, but I am excited to talk more about it with you guys, so maybe that's a feather in this movie's cap. So, would I recommend this movie? I would say if you're a big fan of The Witch, and you're a big fan of really artsy black and white movies that you don't maybe understand everything that's happening, then yes, by all means, go see this. You'll probably love it. But if you're the average moviegoer, and I kind of consider myself an average moviegoer, this probably isn't something you should, like, I don't know, seek out in movie theaters. I don't think it'll ever be aired on TV on like a major channel or something. I mean, if you're curious and you see it pop up in your Netflix queue 5 years from now, like, maybe this could be worth checking out, but probably for me, not a recommend.
Yeah, I also want to recommend, not recommend, but mention the score for this movie. As far as lending to the overall like feeling of isolation and dread that this movie kind of gives, I think the score really lends to that. Not just the score, but the sound editing as well. Like the sound of the ocean and the sound of the wind and the sound of that fucking foghorn that keeps going off, like, it seems like every minute in the movie, or every couple minutes you hear the foghorn. It really just, I think it elevated the movie for me a little bit. And there are parts of this movie where I strictly do not understand what's going on, or what's happening, or why things are happening. It's not clear, other than two guys in this thing, and one or both of them are kind of going a little wacky. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what this movie was for me. And I'm willing to listen to other. That's why I want to talk to you guys about like what might be the themes that you guys were able to pick out of this movie that go a little bit beneath what we see on the surface.
Absolutely, and we'll get to those. That part will be spoilers, because they go deep dive into some things. But I got some takes loaded in the old the hip
Spoiler
gun.
chamber?
But I mean, outside of that, you're absolutely right on the score. It helps create that just sort of like, as a tone piece about isolation and about madness and about just like how that, like the fog and not being around other people just sort of like sits on you, not like a comfy blanket, but like a weight that just like smothers you slowly over time. The score helped do that to me. Like it made me feel like the visuals and the sound and the fact that we were just on this little two-hander with a set that was pretty much just based around like this island and this house. Like you didn't feel like you had any place to escape to. I never felt like I could just go like, oh, well, at least the score is kind of lilting here, so I can escape into that. Or, oh, look, that's really pretty. I'll just look at that. I felt what the characters were feeling because I had nowhere to go, and that's so deliberate.
Yeah, and I think that aspect ratio, which is like, I think somebody said it was like 1.19 to 1 or what.
Yeah, something like that.
I think that also helps with that feeling of focusing you on what's happening right there in front of you and giving you that feeling of like you're closed in, like you're on this little island, there's nowhere to go. And not only that, you're on this little island, but you're also in this little house, this little bedroom where you have to sleep with this guy who, farts or whatever all the time, and you don't really think. So I think all of that thing kind of leads to a mood that I thought was very effective in this movie. I assume, that has to be what this director was going for, and it was very successful.
I think we can't do much more without talking about plugs. Oh, I'm sorry, but talking spoilers. I think we have to dive into that deep discussion because I feel like I'm holding back.
Some of those things.
All right. Well, then we're going to go ahead and officially... I'm trying to think of a good, like, salty Seaman related way of saying spoilers are incoming.
We need to spill our beans. Spill our beans.
Oh, that's good. I like that one, matey Jim. God damn it, Bill. Anyway, all right. So spoilers for The Lighthouse are incoming. We'll just put a note in the chat. Will, thanks for doing that. If you want to protect yourself from spoilers around The Lighthouse, feel free to step away. If you're listening through the magic of digital tape delay, just use the time index in the show notes if you want to skip ahead or whatnot. But spoilers are inbound. They're fair game starting right now. How many times can two seamen masturbate? That is a question I think this movie should pose an answer.
So we saw at least 2 instances of Ephraim Winslow. This is Robert Pattinson's character, kind of jerking it. And then we saw another shot of Thomas Wake, who is Willem Dafoe's character. Was he masturbating, like grinding into the bed at one point?
It looked like it.
That?
There's, yeah.
From when
he's looking through the roof.
He's looking through the roof. Looks down. He's watching Willem Dafoe's ass like undulate up and down. I'm like, that's interesting.
So you asked what the themes were, and I've got 3 that sort of overlap, and it's because Eggers has something that he did, the actors have something that they did, and then there's another sort of tone piece in play here. But one of the things that the actors really focused on here was to bring out the sexuality between the 2 characters. And maybe sexuality isn't even the right word for it, because I think sexuality definitely has a certain set of implications, but there's a power dynamic between these 2 characters that evolves in a very both sexual and sexual adjacent way. We have a moment where these 2 guys are dancing with one another and drinking, and they get into an argument, and then their faces get super close to one another in basically in theater it's called kiss. they call it kiss or kill in theater, like when you characters get so close, like you can't invade someone's spaces without either a kiss or a kill, and that's where they get to. They get right up in each other's face. We get to see some Dom sub play between the two,
Yeah.
and we get to see some Dom sub reversal as those power dynamics get twisted out of a rotation. We get to see the loneliness of the Ephraim, the Pattinson character, weigh down on him so much that he not only like masturbates to this little mermaid statue, but also fantasizes about what that mermaid's genitalia would actually look like. And
that big old squishy cabbage right there in the middle of the mermaid.
Oh God, Jim, please, God, that's so I think that homoeroticism that never came into play as an actual like I think the question of like, are these characters gay or are they not, is sort of like not the right question. But I think there's some homoerotic undertones to the way that they've attacked the scene and they attacked a lot of these moments that I think is so important to this like isolation / bond that these two people have in this very unique situation.
Listen,
Yeah.
every porn I've ever watched that has the setup of two guys by themselves alone for an extended period of time ends up with them fucking. So, I mean, that has to be true to life, right? Like, gay or not, put two guys together for 2 months with...
Or at least a handy. You know what I mean? Yeah, and we never saw any of that in the movie. There was some, like you say, Will, homoeroticism hinted at, and we have, God, if I was on that island for fucking, I would have masturbated a lot more than 3 times. I can tell you that right now. But maybe not to a mermaid statue. Just
not to a mermaid statue. You would have been fantasizing. That was honestly, that question came up in the Q&A.
And not to tentacles.
Edgar said, like, yeah, one of the weirdest things we had to do production design wise was we had to look up like fish and shark genitalia so that we could figure out how we would do the mermaid's folds and still make it like look like something actually aquatic and so can you imagine that being your job? I'm like, what are you doing, honey? You're on the computer all day. Yeah, I'm looking up shark vaginas. I'm trying to for work. Oh yeah, for work.
We got to cut and paste this right onto this mermaid. How's it look, honey? Does it look good? Yeah, but yeah, and well, I agree. I mean, like all these themes are kind of running around, and it's just like I'm not sure it all kind of comes together, like. Kind of like the Witch did for me. I know toward the end of the movie, you're in a phase where like you don't know what's real and what's not real in this movie versus the Witch, where I think you pretty much know that everything you see in that movie is really happening. In this movie, it's much different, I think, and because he's getting in the mind of two people, or at least one person, right? That has, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, but I think the Winslow character was the only one who was like super, what's the word? Disturbed, I guess, by this isolation, and also by some guilt that had been building up in him from some things that he had seen or done, done. So that was all weighing on him, and he's the one who kind of comes undone at the end. And then there's the last scenes of this movie, which I really need explained to me. The last 2 scenes, one of them where so the whole movie he's trying to go up and into the light, but Tom won't let him go up there. Thomas, he finally gets up there and he looks in the light and screams, and I guess he gets burned by the light. It's hard to say, like his eyes get burned out or something. And then it cuts to the next scene, and he's out on the rocks. And the seagull is eating his intestines or something.
So
it's
you're gonna
strange.
Fucking hate this answer. You're gonna fucking hate this answer, but I do have an answer, and you're gonna hate it because it is like, I think, Brad, you would probably call the answer I'm about to give very wanky, and I acknowledge that it's very wanky. So first of all, I think
this is a movie to give wanky.
This is the movie to it, yeah. So one of the kind of the mood pieces to this is there's sort of like this like think Lovecraft, think Cthulhu, think that stuff. Not the actual characters from that, but just sort of like that we can't know what we don't know. There's this like madness that's on the fringes of our periphery and all of that stuff. And so that sets the tone for one of Egger's other influences, which is Greek mythology. Yep, this is a Greek mythology analog, because you have characters like the Defoe character is very representative of like Proteus, the old man of the sea gods, and all of that stuff. And you look at the Pattinson character Thomas, sort of like Prometheus, the one who is fascinated with the idea of I have to go get the fire, I have to go snatch that from the hands of the gods, and that's what the light at the top of the lighthouse is. And then when he finally gets that, the Prometheus myth is his punishment for doing that is every day the eagles come and eat his liver, and that's why the seagulls were like eating his intestines there at the end. Incredibly wanky, and that's why it's like I appreciate it because it's very singular in terms of like it's like the influences and the way that they're pulled together. But again, if someone were to look at that and go, you know, I'm okay with that too. I'm very okay with that.
So
I know that this is my flavor. This doesn't have to be everyone's flavor.
Does that stuff at the end that kind of parallels the Prometheus myth shed any light back on the rest of the movie and stuff that was happening in the movie? Like, that's kind of what you look for. Like, when you have moments like that, you say, oh, yeah, that's, you know, I don't know, though. I don't know the mythology, so.
I think in some ways, like, you know, he's very, a lot of his issues, he has the guilt, yes, and he has the isolation and the madness and all of that stuff, yes, but a lot of the place that he directs that through the course of this movie is this jealousy towards the Defoe character who keeps saying, nope, you can't get up here and see this. You can't see this. And so it's almost like sort of like the quest for forbidden knowledge, like, you know, the the desire to get the thing that you can't have that drives you mad, because not because of what it is, but because it's so close but always out of reach, and it drives you mad that it's right there. It's like you know, if you were to put like a bottle of water like right outside the grasp of someone dying of thirst, like that's almost as cruel as anything else, just because of the psychological effect that it would have on them.
So
yeah.
So yeah, and maybe that's true. Like I said, maybe I need to look into the mythology the next time I watch it with the subtitles on. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't know really what to make of the ending. It really got crazy at the end. I did notice that the movie did turn on a specific event, and that was the killing of the seagull, right?
Yes.
In the movie, he's like, don't kill the seagull.
It's bad luck
right
to kill a seabird.
It says that Inum is the spirit of lost sailors or whatever, right? So he brutally kills the seabird, which kind of was disturbing, right? That was very disturbing. And then things really go bad after that. I guess they missed the boat, or the boat didn't come.
I didn't understand that. Because
the boat was never there. I don't know.
Because Defoe is like, we missed it weeks ago. But, like, weren't they just having dinner, like, saying, oh, the boat's coming tomorrow?
I don't know for sure, but the way I took that scene was sort of like the Defoe character, who also was, I think that while he didn't have madness, he had this, like, weird, like, loneliness / desperate need for the Ephraim character to be there, because it was someone that he could control, but that's someone he could sort of keep at a very specific arm's reach. And so I read that scene as him gaslighting the Pattinson character, essentially just saying like, oh yeah, we missed it. Like, I think we could say the boat maybe wasn't even supposed to come, or maybe, you know, it hadn't been weeks, it had been days. But either way, like, I think that gaslighting helped contribute to Ephraim's madness, because at that point he was topsy-turvy and didn't know anything from anything.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, why did this stuff happen to this this set of lighthouse keepers? At the beginning of the movie, you see them switching, right? It looks like another pair was coming out as they were walking in, so it's just curious as to, okay, something about these two characters together cause things to spin out of control, I guess.
Yeah, they're both unreliable narrators, for one thing, right? So it's hard to kind of understand.
They are both. Yes.
But it seems like maybe the Defoe character killed his last partner. And it seems like the Ephraim character, who isn't really Ephraim, Tommy, whatever, he killed somebody and he's there trying to get a new life. And, they're just clashing, probably more so than two seasoned seaman wikis would otherwise. So I really wanted to see the new team show up on the island and be like, "Da fuck? Defoe?" And then end scene.
That'll be the Lighthouse too. You'll have two new actors. You've got Shia LaBeouf and Tommy Lee Jones show up on boat, and they go over there, and you see that Defoe and Pattinson had gotten off the boat 20 minutes earlier, and had just been sitting there muttering to themselves the whole time. That's all it was. Just they instantly went mad. That's it. That was the entire Lighthouse. That's the Lighthouse 2.
Yeah.
The Lighthouse 3 is when they're going to introduce the Seawalks.
Oh.
They're kind of like the cute, adorable version of the seagulls for marketing. Then they're going to bring in Weiss and Benioff for the Lighthouses 4 through 6. So we're going to really dive into the deeper
But here's the
lore
thing.
there.
Weiss and Benioff are totally going to rush through 4, 5, and 6 to get to their next thing. So is it even worth watching those? I don't know.
Guys, you're putting the cart before the horse. None of this can happen until Disney buys A24.
Oh, that's a good point.
Jim,
did I just break your heart, Will?
Wipe that sentence out of your mouth.
Quote of the episode. You better tweet Disney right now, Jim, if you want that to happen. I bet they do it tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, that's going up on Twitter.
Please don't. It's sort of like there's certain things that we can't will into existence, and A24 is this beautiful little bastion of just kind of doing their own fucking thing right now, and there's not a lot of places that get a chance to do that, and it's a matter of time before they strike a deal with. I mean, probably less Disney and probably more like Netflix. I could 100% see, or Apple, they're part of Apple Plus, or they're part of Amazon Studios, or just everything just sort of turns into these big globs of things absorbing. But for right now, man, I love that they're doing what they're doing.
It'll just make way for the next A24 to come in and thrill us. That's what happens.
I hope.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
So one thing I do want to say is. I did enjoy Pattinson in this movie, especially thinking of him stepping into a Batman role. He's kind of bulked up. There were some shirtless scenes. He's got some muscles going on. Also hairy-chested, which I appreciated. The mustache, not so much. But I don't know. I'm kind of more into the idea of him being Batman now. I know he's been kind of a hot streak. He's had several really great movies in a row now. And, seeing him in something so serious has been good for me. Why are you laughing?
I'm only laughing because I know why you're saying this. Because we got 2 or 3 shots with him with no shirt on and his hairy chest.
Well, but that's not going to help him.
Yes!
That's not going to help him play a better Batman. It just makes him better eye candy.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Unless they're doing something really fucking weird with the new Bat costume.
Yeah. Bat Under Armour.
I think Robert Pattinson is one of those actors who, and I mentioned Shia LaBeouf before for a reason. I think both of those two actors have just been quietly been putting in the work, right? We have Robert Pattinson this year alone had The Lighthouse. He had the Claire Denis movie High Life. He had Damsel, which I think was actually the end of last year, but also super good little Western. He and Timothy Chalamet are in The King, a historical epic coming out. And then we've got the new Ciro Guerra movie, Waiting for Barbarians, which is supposed to be the end of this year, but I'm guessing it's going to get bumped. That's the dude that did Embrace the Serpent a few years back. These are all super good, super talented, indie filmmakers who are sort of known for putting out quality work, and Pattinson has been stepping up to the plate and leading roles with these filmmakers for some time. He's worked with Cronenberg. Of course, we loved what he did with the Safdies. He's been, you're right, Brad. You said he's been on this hot streak. He's just been almost building up his resume, building up his cred. so that when he goes back and does a big studio film again, like Batman, it's not like the dude who went from Harry Potter to Twilight to Batman. For me, he's the dude who's put out some of my favorite movies of the last few years, is now the new Batman. So I love his trajectory.
Yeah, I'm with you, Will. Again, I'm excited to see him do anything new. Maybe even the new Batman. I don't know, but mostly everything else that he's going to do. Hey, I did hear a rumor, Will, and I got to ask you. I know you saw this at Fantastic Fest. I heard a rumor that some of the early cuts of this movie had some D in there.
What?
That actually got cut in the release.
There was cut D in this movie?
I'll be honest, I don't remember any D. I remember some like shots where you could kind of see like, I mean, obviously there was some butt, and I think there were some as they were putting on some pants where you could maybe see like the upper part of like that kind of like cut area, like but I mean, unless I'm just completely blanking on it, I don't remember actually seeing any dick in it.
All right, well, that's going on Twitter too. I'm going to ask Film Twitter what they think.
Yeah. But we also
MBP needs to know.
We also wouldn't have gotten, because of where it came in the release cycle. Like we wouldn't have gotten the
because
like
you're
the
late,
early cut stuff.
Right?
Yeah, since it was so late along the line, this was probably the same thing that played at like some of the end of year festivals, which would be probably the release.
Just wait, guys. Just wait. When this comes out on Blu-ray, we're gonna get the Lighthouse uncut, and it'll have the D in it.
It's great, because we're talking about these different companies. We got A24, Hamstracked in chat recommends B25, and maybe on the uncut features we'll get D8.5.
I'd be all for it. Oh boy! All right. Well, gentlemen. Woo. Woo. All right. I don't know. Tell me what you think, but I think it's probably time to move towards wrapping up here.
Hey, Sammy W. Sammy W says he saw no D. Yeah, we're talking about on the pre-release versions of the movie, Sammy. So, I don't know. I'm gonna ask some of the folks out on Film Twitter, but we're glad you're here, Sammy.
Yeah.
Look, listen, we never encourage people sneaking their phones into screenings, but if you happen to have snuck your phone into the pre-release screening of The Lighthouse and have some screen captures of some D, just slide it into our DMs.
Slide it in.
Yeah.
Sammy W, good to see you. We're actually going to see Sammy tomorrow. He's flying in, and Kevin Ryan, who's usually here with us for the podcast, is conspicuously absent right now because he's on a plane coming here right now too. We're all renting a cabin this weekend. So, Sammy, we're going to have to talk about this movie with you. Jim told me you had some reservations about how I was going to like it or not. I'm really curious to hear your perspective. So don't let us get out of that cabin at the end of the weekend without talking about The Lighthouse. Sammy W, please.
I do have to say, Brad, like, your reaction to this was one of the ones I was most interested in hearing, because I kind of thought Jim would fall about where he fell, right? And Brad, I know that you really liked The Witch, but I also know that this is very much not the type of movie that you normally go for. And so I was really torn on what side of the coin you would land on with, is this your type of film? Or does, like, the fact that he already kind of curried some favor with The Witch, like, how would that fall? So I was really, really interested in hearing your thoughts.
How did I match up with your expectations? Well, I'm curious.
I think you were a little more positive than I was expecting. I thought you were going to come in and say, you know what, guys, I really like The Witch, and man, I hated this because it. I thought you were. In fact, up until the exact point where you said I liked it, I was. Even your setup was like, now it's time for me to wait. I was thinking you were going to dunk on it.
So, I was worried, really worried at the beginning of the movie. Because the first scene, when you get both of them together in the lighthouse, I think they're sitting over the first meal that we see them, and they're talking. And it's, for some reason, in that first scene, it was very difficult to get into the dialogue and understand what the fuck they were saying between the accents. And I just thought it was a little bit poor. The way the mix was a little weird. Like the voices were a little a little in the back compared to like some of the ambient noises,
Yeah.
plus the slang and everything. And it was Brad's like, I can't fucking understand a word they're saying. And I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be a long fucking hour and 40 minutes or whatever
Well,
it
yeah,
was.
like with The Witch, we had like the historical journals which inspired the dialogue. This was inspired by both Herman Melville's writing and some of like the journals kept by like, New
Mm-hmm.
England wikis and stuff like that. The difference being that I think with The Witch, there are some scenes at night, but a lot of the dialogue happens during the day in full color. So you can see a little bit more of what's happening on. Whereas the lighthouse is in black and white. It's this oppressive color over everything. So it's a little harder to sort of like pull yourself in and just be able to kind of read like the body
Mm.
language and the facial expressions because of all that stuff. It is a much harder, like I said, it is a
Yeah.
way less accessible film than The Witch.
Will, you kept mentioning Shia LaBeouf all episode, and I just realized there is a Shia LaBeouf connection with this movie that I don't think we've called out yet. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Shia LaBeouf in the Transformers movies played Sam Witwicky, and he was named
Ah,
such after famous sailors who traveled the world exploring, and they were wikis. So there you go. Maybe Sam Witwicky's ancestor worked on this lighthouse.
Which means King Arthur's ancestor. I'm trying to remember. The last Transformers got really fucking weird
So-
with
I think
history and
what
lore.
it really means is I was at the lighthouse the entire time.
So that's what the Lighthouse 2 is. Like we see like Pattinson's character just like sprawled out there, seagulls. We see the axe in Defoe's character, and then the Lighthouse goes
I
changes into a jet and flies away.
I am Lighthouse Prime. Anyway,
wow, guys.
obviously we're at the end of the episode because we're super punchy. So
So is Sam Witwicky one of the knuckle grandchildren of Ephraim Winslow, maybe?
Oh my god, I've never heard that phrase, but now I know exactly what you mean.
wait a
Oh,
second.
God.
Did he actually have sex with that mermaid who then went to Ursula the Sea Witch and got her legs and became human and created the line of Witwickies?
So you're saying the Lighthouse 2 is the live action Little
it was-
Mermaid coming
it
out
was
next year?
wet. It was wet wikis, but they changed it to wit wikis.
Because he went his wiki in the mermaid.
Oh my god! Oh my god! What's our transition?
Hamstracked in the chat wants to know if we read that on.
It's gonna cut to black.
He
right
wants to
here.
know if we read that on Wikipedia. Nice. Hamstrack is
That's
a
really good.
man after my own pun heart. I just want to make a heart symbol for those that can see it to demonstrate my love for Hamstrack. That was awesome. All right, I think we're done here. But in case anybody wants to keep talking about this, let's just let them know where they can find us online. Jim, if people want to talk to you between now and next week, where can they find you?
Please check me out on Twitter. That's where I talk mostly about film, movies, or I'd like to talk more about film and movies. My Twitter is at JJP Out West. Those are my initials, JJP Out West. And then you can also find me on Facebook at Jim Pugliafico.
All right, excellent. And Will, how about some social media contact information for you?
Yeah, where can you find me? All right, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at whatever cove. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for William Lindis. Hit me up on Letterboxd. Look for William Lindis. You can see all the different films I've reviewed there. And hey, catch me at BlizzCon this coming weekend in Anaheim. If you happen to be going and happen to be listening to the show, shoot me a message. I'd love to catch up with you and say hi.
All right, excellent. And you can find me on Facebook. Just search for Brad Harris. I'm the one who likely has Chub Chaser and Bear Friends in common with you. Please just send me a message if you do friend request me, just so I know you're from the podcast. No joke, guys. A bot messaged me today and tried to get my phone number. And this bot had taken the picture of a gay bear and was pretending to be a gay bear. And I was so distracted by his beautifulness, I almost gave him my phone number, But then I started looking at his profile, and Neve from Catfish would be really proud of me. I realized what I was dealing with. Yeah, don't let those hairy chests draw you in, Brad. Anyway, feel free to say hi. Would love to chat movies with you. Also on Twitter at iBradPro. Guys, we are out until next time. Thanks so much to everybody who hung out with us tonight in the live chat. Great having you here. Glad to hear that you enjoyed the return of live video. We're really excited about that. And, we're going to keep carrying that forward, God's willing, for future shows. So we'll see you next time, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.